In this tutorial, I'll be sharing with you the tips and tricks to sewing a perfect deep illusion corset. As you can see right there, we are going to tone it down with nets. Okay, so this is a 3-part corset tutorial. After sewing this basic deep illusion corset, you can now embellish it to your choice. So here you can see how it can be embellished. So this is the end result. So we'll be starting the drafting of this tutorial starting from my chest line, my bust point, under bust point, waist, and I'll count 5 inches down for my full length of my corset. So I'm going to repeat this same on the other side to get a straight line. Go ahead and rule my line from the chest line, bust point, under bust line, waist line, and the full length of this corset. So here is the shoulder, chest line, bust point, under bust, waist, and full length. So we are going to take the measurement of our shoulder, divide by 2. I'm going to mark. Then neckline is by choice. I use 2.5 by 2.5 inches for my neckline. Then I came down by 1 inch for my shoulder drop and ruled my line. Then on the chest line, I'm going to measure my shoulder, divide by 2 once again to connect my straight line for my armhole. I got the midpoint of my armhole and I went in by 0.75, connected with a straight line. I measured my bust circumference, divide by 4, and connected my complete armhole. So on the bust point, I'm going to take my bust span or nipple to nipple measurement from the bust point to the full length of this corset. After that, I divided my shoulder into 2 and connected a straight line from that point to the bust point, as you can see right here. So I'm going to take my illusion right now. So from the chest line, I came down by 1 inch for my illusion, and I came in again by 1.25, depending on how wide you want the illusion to be. You can make it smaller or wider. So I'm going to connect this illusion right now. The deep illusion is going to get to the under bust. You can also make it to the waistline, above the, depending on where you want it to be. So on that line from the shoulder, I marked 6.5 inches. So I'm going to use this 6.5 inches to connect the neckline. That is the height of the neckline. So I'm going to twist my ruler the other way and connect back to the illusion point. So you can see how I flip my ruler to connect to that point. So here we have the neckline right now. So the next thing I'm going to do is to connect that straight line on the nipple to nipple straight to the neckline. So I'm going to come out by 3 inches from half of that shoulder, connect it back to the bust point. Connect from the neckline to the bust point right now. That will give us our over bust contour line. So next we are going to contour our under bust. So I'm going to take 1.5 on this side and 1.5 on the other side. And on the full length, I'll take 1 inch on that side and 1 inch on the other side. So I'm going to connect a straight line from that point. So the next thing is to use my curve ruler for my under bust contour line. I'm going to connect a curve, as you can see. Of course, you are familiar with this. So after connecting that point, we are going to cut out this dart. So this is the dart for this corset. So now I'm going to take the measurement. This is my center front. So it's going to be cut on fold. Everything will be cut on fold. So I'll place my tape on the chest line and mark my bust circumference, divide by 4. Then what I have on that gap for the dart, I'm going to replace it. On the waistline, I took my waist, divide by 4 and replaced my dart. And on the full length, I took my hip, divide by 4 and replaced my dart too. So I'm going to connect the sides right now from the chest line to the waist and then to the full length of this corset. So now we are going to take our difference between the front length and back length, which is the bust dart. So I'm going to come out by 1 inch on the midpoint of the bust dart just to connect for my bust dart accommodation. So next I'm going to fully curve the cup in from that illusion point to the under bust point. Then I'll come up by 1.5 inches just to shape in the down piece of my corset. You can also leave it that way, it's optional. Here is my yoke. For the other side of the cup, you are going to take from the bust point to the under bust, whatever you have, just mark it and add 1.5 inches on the side of the cup. Then you connect from the chest line to the under bust. So that will give you the side cup. So now we want to cut out the pattern. So we are going to close up our bust dart right now. So I'm going to cut out the size of the pattern right away, so we'll be able to close the bust dart. So you just cut through the waist dart and then close up your bust dart. So here you can see me closing up my bust dart right now. So after closing up the bust dart, I'm going to adjust the side of the cup because you have a little excess on that side, as you can see. So now I'm going to continue cutting my pattern, as you can see right here. So I'm cutting right to separate the yoke, and then I'll cut off the dart. So you can see where I cut out the illusion. I'm going to teach you the tips and tricks to making a perfect illusion neckline. So you have to cut it out at that illusion point and take off your darts. So I'm going to match up my cups right now to be sure there is no shortage. So if there's a shortage, I'll just go ahead and add up my pepper and fully connect that shortage on my cup. So you can see I have a shortage right there. So I'm matching up the lines on the chest line to replace that shortage. So I'll just go ahead and curve in my cup accordingly, as you can see right there. So this is it, and the cup is very much ready. So we want to create a 3-part corset cup for this. So I'm going to seal up this cup completely. I'll just seal it up completely, as you can see. So I first separated my cup. If you want a 2-part cup, you can use it this way. But if you want a 3-part cup, that means we are going to seal up this cup completely and create a 3-part corset cup. So I'll just go ahead and cut off my seal tape. So I'm going to seal the other part up too. So here you can see I'm done sealing up that cup right now. So I'm going to measure 1 inch up from the bust point, and I'll measure 0.75 down from that point, then connect the shape of the cup back to the bust point line. So this is the shape of the 3-part cup I want right now. So I'll just go ahead and trim off. I want to round up that part because it's actually looking pointy to me. So I'll just remove that little excess to shape in the cup. So I'm going to cut out my 3-part cup, as you can see right away. Okay, so this is the first part, and I'm going to take off my seal tape, and that will be the second part of this cup. So you can see how my cup is, and that is how it's going to look like. So this is the 2-part, and this is the 3rd one. So you have to indicate the bust point line, the sides, the center, front. So we'll be able to know which part we are going to sew when we get to the sewing point. So here is the bodies of the pattern right now. So we are going to also match up. This is what we have for our pattern. For the bodies of the pattern, I'm going to put the bodies together so it will be just one piece. So instead of having too much joining on your corset, we'll just match this part up and make it one bodice piece. So the pattern for the front is ready right now, and you can see what I have right here. So I'm going to set it aside, and we'll measure the back chest line waistline and count 5 inches from the waistline. Remember, the back is shorter than the front because of the front length and back length technique. So you just take away your difference. So I'm going to rule my lines. As you can see, here's my shoulder, the chest line, waistline, and the full length. I'll take my shoulder divided by 2, come down by 1 inch. Neckline is still 2.5 inches width. Then I came down by 1 inch for the back neckline. So this is by choice, the neckline too. So I'll connect a straight line, get the midpoint, and go in by 0.5 inch for the back. So on the chest line right now, I'm going to take my bust circumference divided by 4, waist divide by 4, and hip divide by 4. So there's no dart for the back. So I'm going to connect my armhole now and connect the sides of this back corset. So I also come up by 1.5 inches on the hemline to shaping the hem part. So I'm going to take 2.5 inches for my corset back opening. So I'm going to rule a line at that point. So you can make it 2 inches. You can also make it a V-line part if you want. So here are my eyelet spacing. So and here I'm going to use my button for the center back. So if you also want to shaping this back to your taste, you can go ahead and come down by 2 inches and come in by 0.75 inch and just connect the normal back we know. Okay, so you can see the shape of the normal back we always connect. So it's just by choice. You can make buttons at the center back. You can use this shape or any shape of your choice. So I'm cutting out the size of this corset right now. So we are going to cut out the corset back and then separate our pieces. Here is the yoke and this is the bodice piece. So I'm going to rule my eyelet line at 2 inches. So this is my eyelet space. Okay, so I'm going to cut it out later. That will serve as where our eyelet is going to be. That is the boning channel or eyelet channel. So make sure you make your marks accordingly, as you can see. So at the yoke, you can see I made an arrow. So we want to start up sewing right now. So here I'm going to make use of a corset mesh, an illusion mesh. So there's going to be a toning down of the corset mesh. So here I use the either crepe or jonkoso fabric. You can use it for the fabric. So I'm going to place my patterns right now. So here is my pattern. I'll place it. I placed my corset mesh on fold. So I just want to cut out the eyelet channel. So it's 2 inches width. I'll cut it out and then we are going to place the other part where we will cut the corset mesh. So now I'm going to add a half an inch all through. So I placed the front piece on fold like I said before. So we are going to have the front pattern on fold. So I added half an inch right now. So for the back pattern, I adjusted my corset mesh not to waste it because it's actually very expensive. So I just go ahead and secure with my pins, as you can see. So I added half an inch as well. So here I added half an inch on the front piece to sew the eyelet pattern. So this pattern is ready now. We are going to take it off to mark our boning channels. So I'm going to work on the front piece first. So I just open it up and place my pattern accordingly. So we'll just make a mark at that illusion point, which is at the other under bust, and connect a straight line like that and the V neckline accordingly. So which is illusion depth. So we are marking out the lines of the boning channels. So just make it a spacing of 1.5 or 2 inches depending. Then on the down piece you can make it 1 inch if you want it to be slanted. So just create any channel of your choice. So I'm using my chalk now to mark out those lines accordingly. So if you also want a V line connection, I have a detailed tutorial on this channel on how to make that V line part. So for the back, I also marked 2 inches accordingly. So I'm going to rule those lines, as you can see. So of course you are familiar with this pattern. So I'm done marking out the piece. So we want to cut out the cup. So I came in with my fabric. My fabric name is Jonkoso. It's a new fabric in the market. So I am going to mark out my channels right now, and I use 1.5 inches for my channels. So I will use this 1.5 inches to wrap up my boning channels. So I just went ahead and marked 1.5 inches spacing for my boning channel casing. So I'll just go ahead and cut it out accordingly. So that is exactly what I'm doing. So you make sure you prepare your boning channel casings. So I have them right now as much as possible. So now I'm going to also iron my wadding and iron my hairstay on one side. I'm doing this because we are going to have our bust caging for the corset cup. So the part that has the hairstay is going to be for the upper cup, and the inner cup will have the wadding piece. So we'll be able to cage our cup accordingly. So here you can see me arranging my patterns, my three-part corset pattern. So here I'm going to add half an inch all around to them, as you can see. So I added half an inch accordingly. So I will also add half an inch on this part. So here my cup is ready. So that is the part that is going to be on the inner part where the bust caging is going to be. So we are going to place that part on top of the part that has the hairstay, which is the upper piece of the cup. So I'll place it on top and then cut out the shape once again. So make sure you secure with your pin before you go ahead and cut that piece. So after cutting, our cup is ready. So the next thing we'll do now is to separate the part that has the wadding and separate the part that has the hairstay accordingly. So I'm going to first notch the bust point. You can see me notching the bust point where we have the arrow. Make sure you notch it so you'll be able to join your cup accordingly. So next is to place my eyelet channel. You can see I have my hairstay. Make sure you hairstay this part so it will be able to carry the channel, the eyelets properly. So I added half an inch. I placed it on fold on the eyelet piece and added half an inch. So I'm going to cut out two pieces of it, as you can see. So here are the two pieces. You can see them. So I'll set it aside. So next is to cut out the yoke line. So for the yoke line, I usually like to join the neckline. So you can see how I join the shoulder seam line. So there won't be any joining on the shoulder seam line. So I'll just go ahead and tape that part accordingly before we cut out on our illusion mesh. So here I'm trying to join them using my seal tape. So I'll just take my time and make sure it aligns appropriately. So I will go ahead now, align it appropriately, cut out the excess seal tape on the armhole part and on the neckline part accordingly. So this is the front piece. So like I told you, I'm going to share the tips and tricks to you. So I will just join it back again on that part I cut because this is a deep illusion part. So I'll join this part again and then cut out the deep illusion yoke line. So I will just cut through that illusion line I marked from the chest line to the under bust point. So I'll separate it. So at this point you are going to join it because we want to cut out our yoke. So I place my yoke on two folds because I really want to stitch the neckline. So I'll place that center front line on the folded edge. You can see how I place it. Make sure it's on the folded edge. So when you place it on the folded edge, you will see the bottom piece, the bottom part. You can see there's a space to add half an inch for the sewing of the button loops. So this is how it should be now. So we'll go ahead and add half an inch to it for stitching. So go ahead and add half an inch accordingly. So that is exactly what I'm doing right now, adding half an inch like that. So here the yoke is ready. So I'm going to set the yoke aside too until we get to the sewing part. So make sure you make a notch at that point too. So I'm using my regling boning of 0.5 inches. My regling boning is 0.5 inches. So I'm going to use it to sew my boning channels. So here you can see the V deep illusion neckline. I'm going to share with you the tips and tricks to making this neckline appropriately. So first you are going to wrap up your boning channel into the fabric, as you can see. So you can see where I'm placing it. So I'm going to put that boning on the edge. So wrap it up very well and follow the V deep illusion neckline and stitch to the point you want it to stop. So I want it to stop at that underbust. You can see I created a line on where I want it to stop. So after sewing that part, you flip up your channel the other way and stitch down the boning. So just follow that V shape on that corset mesh. So before I get to that point, I'm going to make a mark of the underbust where I want it to stop. From that point of the underbust, just make a little slant. You can see a little slant. That is where you are going to cut it off. So you can see you cut it in a slanted manner. Then you continue your stitching to the end of it. So we are going to turn it the other way to sew the other side. So I'll just go ahead and stitch the other side. So after that, I'm going to wrap up my boning channel for the other part of the V as well. So I want you to pay attention to see how I'm doing this. So I'll also face the channel the other way, the opening side of it, the other end. So you can see where I'm placing it right now. So I'm going to measure, make sure my stitching gets to that underbust line. So you have to align it appropriately so you'll be able to get that V shape. So I've gotten to that V shape. So I'll flip it this other way to stitch as well. You can see that V part is really aligning appropriately. So I'll just mark the underbust line and mark down the part I want to slant with my ruler, just like I did on the other side. So I'll first cut it off before we continue stitching. So you can see the shape it gave me right there. So I'm going to stitch down the other side of it accordingly. So I'll just stitch it down, as you can see. And I'll turn it to the other side and also stitch it down accordingly. So if you look at what we have, you can see we have that V line. So I'm going to take the measurement of the straight part of the boning, which we are going to use to cross. Here I have 9.5 inches. So I'll just take away 1.5 inches. So I'm going to cut my regling boning at 8 inches. Okay. So I'll just cut it out at 8 inches. So I'm going to wrap up my boning. But first of all, I'll wrap in 0.75 before I wrap the other. So this part, we are going to place it on top of the V part. So you are going to come out a little bit from that marking on the center line and stitch down the first channel. So after stitching the first channel, I'm going to flip it up the other way to complete the stitching. So once you get to the V part, you just go in and stitch down. Okay, so you can see how I stitched it, and this is what I have right now. So I'll just cut out the excesses I have, and you can see the V part is looking very beautiful at that point. So I'm done stitching my boning channel. So I want to show you how I stitched the last one. So I measure the length of where I want to stitch and cut out 1.5 inches from it. That is the measurement of my regling boning. So for this part, I'll put in the readily boning on the fabric casing, and then I will come out a little bit above the corset line. Of course, you know how to stitch this part, okay? So I'll cut it off, then wrap it up and continue the stitching. So this is the method I used in stitching my boning channels. So I'll also sew the other side to make the boning channel stitching very complete. So at the end of the day, we are going to trim out the excesses of the fabric. So you can see the excesses. I'll just take the cup shape and cut it out. So I've given it a good press and my boning channels are ready right now. So here is the back pattern piece. I'm going to stitch it too, but I decided to add one more boning channel to it because that side is actually looking very big to me. So I went in and marked an extra line. So I'm done sewing. So right now we are going to tone down this corset mesh with a net or a tulle. So I folded this net into two and place it on top of the corset mesh. So you can place it into 3 or into 4 depending on the toning you want it to have. So I folded my fabric into 2 and placed on it. So here I've cut out the shape. So you are going to turn the back piece of this corset, the back part, that is where you are going to place this. So I will secure it with my pin once again on the back part. So make sure you pin down very well, because you are going to stitch this part, this net right now. So I'm going to go in with my zipper foot. Make sure you use your zipper foot. Follow the lines of that V shape. So I'm sewing from the back right now. So just mark, sew out that way, and then reduce your seams. Okay, so just cut out the part that you don't need. So you can see how we created that V shape. So you take off your pins, and then we are going to flip the mesh to the front. So you flip the mesh to the front this way. Can you see the V neckline? So this is the secret I want to share with you in making an accurate illusion neckline. So I'll go ahead and secure with my pin. So arrange this part very well, okay? So I've made sure I arrange it very well. So after arranging, I'm going to stitch down the net on the corset mesh following the cup shape. So after sewing all the sides, I'm going to trim them up. So I'll trim off the excesses of the net to have the shape of the corset mesh I already have. So I'll go into the cup shape now and trim out the cup shapes accordingly. So here is what we got. I'm going to set it aside. So we are going to work on the back piece right now. So I've stitched my boning channel. So I also fold my net into 2 to get the same toning I have for the front, for the back as well. So I'll just secure with my pin and then trim it off. So this part right now, I'll just trim off and get the shape of the net with the corset mesh. So I'm going to take off, I secure with my pin first, but here on the machine, I'm going to take off those pins to separate the net and the corset mesh. So you have to separate it. So I'm going to join the side, one side to the front side. So you first join it this way on the front piece. So I'm joining on the front piece. Of course, you know how to join our corset on the upper front piece. So here, this is the front piece. I have my joining. So next, I'm going to place the side of the mesh on the other side. So you can see how I placed it on the other side. So I'm going to also stitch down that other side, following the seam allowance I have already on the other side. So you can see where I place the net and where I place the corset mesh. So after that, this is what I got. So this part will be used to wrap the other part. So I'm going to trim down that excess. So you just trim out your seam allowance and make it smaller. So you can see what we have. So if you want to sew your boning to it, this is the time to sew the boning. So I'm going to spread out the side, bring in, wrap up my boning. So I took the measurements accordingly. So I just wrap it up and then place at that side. So when you are doing this, make sure you are placing it very well. Okay, so you can see how I placed it just on that stitching. So I'm going to sew down my boning on that line. So make sure you spread out your fabric very well so you have a smooth sewing. So after sewing that part, I'll flip up my boning the other way and finish up the side of the boning. So I will finish up the boning the normal way we do. So you can see what we got. You can now close up. Okay, so you can see everything has been toned down. So I will secure with my pin. So at this point you have to align the net very well so it matches exactly with the corset mesh on the back. So after securing with my pin, next is to go ahead to stitch the net on top of the corset mesh so everything will be one piece. So I'll just go ahead and stitch the upper piece, and then we will go ahead and sew the center back piece and the down piece. So we are going to trim out the excess accordingly. So I've done that for the both sides. You can see what we have looking very beautiful. So next we want to go ahead to prepare the eyelet spacing. So here is the eyelet spacing which I added half an inch on the seam line. So I fold in half an inch on one side of each of them. So I'm going to sew the eyelet channel right now. So I'm going to place it and sew. So the part that I did not iron, I'm going to place the right side to the wrong side, the right side to the wrong side, and I will stitch down half an inch. Of course you are familiar with this part, but I just want to show you everything I'm doing. So after stitching that part, next is to cover the part I folded to top stitch. So I'll just go ahead and top stitch on it, as you can see. So make sure you have a very neat finishing at this point. So I've top stitched that side. So next I'm going to measure my boning. The boning is 0.5. So from the edge I'm going to mark 0.5, and on the other edge I'll mark 0.5 inch and stitch down. So this is going to create the channel for my eyelet. The part we are going to place the eyelet, that is the channel. So from the other side, I also stitch down half an inch. We are going to insert our Regling boning into this spacing we made. So I'll be using my lighter to treat the boning edge before I insert it. So it will be very easy for me to insert. So after inserting, this is what we got, and the bodice of this corset is ready. So next, I'm going to sew the yoke line. So I just want to stitch the neckline, and I secured with my pin, as you can see. I'll go over to the machine and stitch at half an inch. Then trim off the excess after stitching. This is what I'm doing right now. That is if you want to use this method. So I've turned it to the right side. I'm going to run a basting stitch on the edges of the yoke. So make sure you make notches on that yoke. Okay, so I'm going to use that notch to align the yoke. So I'm going to place it in this manner. Okay, and I'm going to stitch. So we'll go over to the machine to show you how to do that. So I place the notch part on the edge of the boning of the corset back. So I'm going to stitch down, but before I stitch, make sure you fold in half an inch and then wrap up the 0.5 inches strip, and we are going to sew it. So you can see how I placed it. So just watch this part very well. Okay, I also have another video on how I made it. I'll be dropping the link on the description box below, how to wrap this back piece, in case you did not get this part very well. So I'm going to sew down the yoke, and I'll take it all the way to the front piece where the cup joining will start. So you can see I did this on the wrong part, and I'll turn it to the right piece and trim down. So I'm going to trim down and then wrap it up on the right part of the corset. So here I'll flip that part and use it to cover up. So we are using that part to cover up the edge, and as well stitch the yoke also. So I'm going to stitch it down, as you can see. So here everything is very much ready. So this yoke part will be draped on top of our cup. So we are going to sew our cup right now. So I'm going to separate both the part that will be caged and the part that will be on top. So here we are going to sew all of them accordingly, but I want to tone down this fabric with 2 pieces of net, just like I did on the body, so everything will match accordingly. So I'm going to start sewing the 2 and 3 piece where I notch the bust point. So on the machine, I'm going to place it to stitch. So I'm fast forwarding this part because many of us know how to sew a corset cup, okay? And if you don't know how to sew a corset cup, just go to the channel. You will see where I stitched many corset cups. You can follow that part to stitch. So I'm joining the 3rd piece. So I've done this for all of them, both the part that has the wadding and the part that has the hairstay. So I'm ironing it nicely. So after ironing, trim down the excesses because we are going to cage this part. Okay, so you need to trim down the excesses on your cup very well. So this is what I've done. So everything is ready right now. So next I'm going to mark out my bust caging. So I marked it out. I came down by 0.75 all around and marked out. So I just want to create only one single line. Okay, just only one single line, as you can see. So you can make any shape you want for your corset, but the lesser the shape, the better. So here you can use another boning of 0.3 inches. So this part will be easy for you to twist. So the lesser the boning, the better. I mean the boning width. So I'm going to sew round this part. So you just look at what I'm doing. So I'll cut it out and insert on the first one I stitched, as you can see. So I will begin to sew the vertical part by inserting the vertical part under the parts that are on the side. So I just go ahead and cut out and insert and stitch. I'll also repeat the same. I'll sew the sides completely. So I've done that for that part. So this part, I'm going to insert it and cover that piece. So after that, use your steam iron to shaping this with your tailor's hand. I'm going to fletch this part right now using our fiber. So here is my fiber. I'm going to place the fiber on top of it. But before that, I place my hemming gum so the fiber sticks very well for me. So with my steam iron, I'm going to make sure, take my time to get the mold very well. So after getting the mold of your cup, trim off the excesses you have on your fiber, okay? So you can see me trimming off the excesses. So here I'm going to place the part that I hairstayed on top and stitch the upper piece of the cup. Make sure you also take off the excess and top stitch. So I'm going to flip all my seams on the part of the bust caged cup and top stitch. So place it on the parts, flip your seams to the part of the bust caged cup. So you'll be able to top stitch very well. So after top stitching, I just want to align the upper part of my cup to be sure it matches very well. So here I'm aligning it. So the next thing now is to sew it into the bodies of the corset. So you are going to place the right side of the corset this way. This is how the cup is supposed to be. But then we are going to stitch the lining piece first. So you can see how I placed it. So I'm going to sew in the cup this way at 1/2 inch. So I just go ahead and stitch 1/2 inch. You see where I started to sew. So you have to start sewing from the deep illusion. Make sure you sew from the deep illusion. So now I'm going to put in 1/2 inch on the front piece of the cup and top stitch on top of the cup. So I'm going to do that for the both cups right now. So this is ready. You can see the V shape. So I'm going to use my bias strip to wrap up the down.